So running is a really popular activity amongst a lot of the singers that we work with, and really for good reason. You could run anywhere, and it's a great thing. It's a great way to kind of open things up. It's a great way to help with your sinuses. There are a lot of benefits to running, but we want to use this episode to talk about preparing your body for running, because there's a saying in my industry, because I work with so many people that are injured when I'm, in my in-person business, is you don't get in shape with running, you get in shape to run. And some of you may never have issues with this, but as a singer, this is also really important, because this really speaks to your ability to use the ground and to influence the pressure that's created up to really kind of control your pelvic floor. Okay, and so when we talk about running, there are a couple big factors that we want to consider. Number one, if you have a history of stress fractures or knee pain or whatever, is your foot hitting the ground well? Okay, can your toes separate? Okay, can your foot go through the whole gait cycle where the heel hits the ground, foot hits the floor, and foot pushes off? All right, do you have the ability to control your impact as you go? Do you just not have the strength to do it? So therefore, we have to make compensations, and we end up using our joints as opposed to our muscles. Okay, and finally, do you have a good warm-up? In today's episode, we're going to cover all those things, but I want to begin with just a quick checklist of the foot. All right, so you guys get to look at my foot here, okay? And I want you to notice a couple things about my foot, okay? And by no means is my foot perfect, but number one, can my entire foot get to the ground, okay? And what I mean by that is, can I track my foot straight, okay? So as I put my foot here and I just let it, hit the ground and hold it here, does it want to turn out, or do I want to go to the outside of my foot? Or can I get my foot flat against the ground here, okay? When I'm in this position with my shin behind my, or my knee behind my toes here, I should have some degree of an arch, okay? And I should be able to kind of flatten everything out against the ground, but I should have a little width here. As I drive my knee over my toe, okay, I should feel my arch flatten to the ground. I should also feel my heel flatten to the ground. So a good test of whether your foot is working properly, it would be to see if, number one, I can drive my knee over my toe without my heel immediately lifting off the ground, okay, or my toes bunching up. And number two, I can flatten my foot against the ground, okay, without everything coming together. Okay, so that's a really sort of slowed down version of what is going to happen in running. And oftentimes, when we lose our heel early, we have to place a lot more pressure into the knee and into all the stuff on the front of our body, because our entire foot isn't absorbing the shock as we hit the ground. And number two, if we find that maybe you wear heels a lot, or you're in a position where you're like this, which is kind of what heels does, we're kind of bunched up in our toes, we're not effectively able to push off the ground anymore. So then we have to turn the foot out and kind of roll off the inside of the foot. Or we get this sort of big bunion area where instead of putting stress here and pushing off, we put stress in this area and push it off. And oftentimes that can lead to even things like stress fractures in this area. So a lot of stuff to work with. So today we're just going to talk about all the things and all from a training perspective that go into good preparation for running. A lot of things that you can do to get as many miles pain-free as possible, and also to optimize how your pelvic floor and your foot work together. So stay tuned. All right, so in this first segment, we're just going to talk about mobility of the foot and of what we call the tibia. So anytime I bend my knee and I push off, I want my tibia, which is up here, and if I put my fingers right here, this thing, when I bend my knee, which I'm currently doing, will twist in. And as I push off, this thing will twist out, okay? And oftentimes, if we can't impact our foot into the ground very well, we never get this internal rotation twist. And so therefore, we get a lot of pressure on the outside of the knee. Or because my whole foot just rolls in like a unit, okay, we get a lot of pressure on the inside of the knee. So that's something that we see often. And so without getting too deep into the weeds on that, what is going to help us to stave off a lot of these issues is by mobilizing these things regularly. So what I mean by that is we want to work on our heel, our toe, okay, and our tibia, okay? And so I'm going to show you a couple different things. Number one, we're going to start with our big toe. And one of the ways that we know that we have a healthy foot is, one, my toes can kind of just sit against the ground here, and two, I can put my finger in between them, okay? They're not bunched together, which they would be if my weight is further forward in this area. So one of the things that I want to do to begin with here is to shift my weight back, sort of separate my toes, and just do a big toe lift. Okay, so in this position, I can kind of pull my toe apart and stretch it out a little bit. Okay, but I can also just lift it and lower it. Okay, and so this is a really great exercise. Let's see what I'm doing here to help just stretch the toe and help to reform the arch if you have flat feet. So I would just do this about 10 times. Okay, another one that I like a lot would just be to kind of take the foot, take my finger, put it on the top of my foot, right behind my big toe here, and then pull up on my toe. So I'm sort of pressing this part into the ground and pulling this part off of the ground, which is what happens when our foot sort of flattens as we walk. So again, just holding in this stretch. So I might start with this stretch. I can also just come actively in and out. And then I might, kind of move to doing some pulling up and down on my toe with my foot on the ground here. Okay, so from here, we're going to go into what is called a tibial card. And what I mean by that is I'm going to put my hands on my tibia, okay, which is kind of like right up here. It's right below my kneecap. So my finger is right below this area. And I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to rotate in, and I'm going to use my hand to kind of twist it in, and then I'm going to twist it out. So by mobilizing this guy, we're going to help it to move better. So if you ever feel stiffness in the bottom of your knee or in the middle of your knee, oftentimes it's because this bone doesn't want to rotate very well in relation to the knee. So I would do this about 10 times, okay, and then I would finish up with just what we call a knee drive. So with the knee drive, I'm just going to come into a half kneeling position here. I'll do it this way so you can see me. And I'm going to drive my knee over my big toe. So I'm thinking about not only coming forward, but coming in. I can take my hands here. I can actually take my hands and just twist in like that. So I come out, I form an arch. As I come out, I kind of get the weight to the outside of my foot. And then as I come in, the weight comes to the inside of my foot. So I'm flattening my foot out. Okay, and I've got my hand up here, just encouraging the rotation of this tibia. Coming in, coming out. The other thing here is that as I come in, I'm not losing heel pressure. So again, I'm keeping my heel pushed into the ground. I'm stopping at the point where I'm starting to feel everything come off like that. And I'm just trying to get a little bit more with each rep here. But that's really those three things. The big toe lift, the tibial car with my heel on the ground, or my heel off the ground, and then the knee drive are great ways to help to kind of open everything up in the lower leg to ensure our foot is a good shock absorber as it hits the ground as we run. Okay, folks, so the next thing to consider when we're doing, when we're working on preparing our body for running or just training for running is whether or not our foot can impact the ground well. Okay, and what I mean by that is the ability to jump. Running is essentially a series of controlled jumps. Okay, so running is about 5 times our body weight. It's more as we speed up, and so jumping is a way to train that. Okay, and so the way that I know that if I'm suited to run and I can do it and I have the strength to do it is just by learning whether or not I can land well without pain and it looks decent. And what I mean by that is that as I jump, I should be able to stick the landing without doing that, okay, without pain. Okay, that allows me to know that, as I run, again, it's essentially that action. So thing one, from both the training and a preparing for running standpoint, this can also be done in your warm-up, it's just a small jump forward and just to control it. I want to think about landing toe to heel, meaning my toes land first, followed quickly by my heel. As I get better at this motion, I can make it longer, I can jump farther. But the point being is that I'm able to catch myself and I'm able to pause. Okay, and I want to be able to do it in multiple directions. So just as I go forward, I want to be able to go from side to side. And the reason why is even though running is straightforward, we're still rotating as we do it. Okay, so I like both a forward and a lateral jump. Okay, once we can do that, we can move to something like a single leg hop, where now I'm on one leg, more similar to running. And I'm able to hop on each leg without pain. Finally, Okay, as I get better at this, you know, and as I get more adept at these jumps, they're easier. Then I could start doing multiple jumps at the same time. I can go forward, I can turn around, I can go laterally, I can come back. But again, I'd say 3 sets of 8 to 10 jumps as part of, you know, your workout routine, or even before you run, is a really great protective mechanism for running, because it trains your foot to impact and push off the ground, and it builds the shock absorbing capability of your entire body. So give that a go. All right, so finally, I just wanted to share 3 warm-up activities that I really like to focus on getting both into our hips and into our foot. So we want to start by loading our heel. And so let's say you're going out to run and you have 1 minute to warm up. Okay, you literally just do about 6 of each of these and you're going to be good to go. So I'm going to put my feet together, I'm going to step my left foot back, I'm going to reach my hand down to my right hand down to my left foot. I want to think about sticking my butt out. Okay, and kind of going just straight back, take a deep breath in. We're going to exhale and just switch sides. So the idea is that we're getting our weight to our heels. We're just alternating sides, just kind of opening everything up. Really good for when we're kind of stiff in our backside here. Okay, so our next move is just a walking lunge with a cross connect. So I'm going to lunge forward, get into the middle of my foot, rotate in, and just come back. So I can either go forward and back, or I can just do about 5 lunges forward on each side. Last but not least are what I call crouch walks. So the crouch walk, I'm going to come onto my toes. Okay, so my heel is slightly off the ground here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm crouching and I'm just walking forward. Okay, and again, I can either go forward and backwards, or I can just go forward. But the idea is that we're kind of pushing through right behind our big toe while with our feet tracking straight. Okay, so this is likely pushing off. Okay, this is going to activate the appropriate muscles to allow us to do that. And then we're off to the races with a run. So give that a go, guys. Again, maybe just 5 to 10 of each of those on each side, then hit the run.